Psychologists note that betrayal by both a romantic partner and a close family member often causes long-term trust damage because it collapses two core emotional bonds at once. 2 weeks before my wedding, I found my fiancé's watch on my sister's nightstand. And in that moment, I realized the man I was about to marry didn't just betray me. He chose my own blood. My name is Paige Whitmore. I'm 31, an administrative manager in Indiana, and I was supposed to be counting down the happiest days of my life. 6 years with Logan Pierce felt solid. Safe. Everyone said wedding nerves were normal, so I ignored the tight feeling in my chest and kept smiling. My younger sister, Holly, had been around more than usual. She helped with seating charts, cake tastings, even my dress fitting. Logan said it was sweet that she cared so much. I told myself the same thing. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house to store extra decorations. Holly wasn't home. Her bedroom door was open. I stepped inside to set down a box, and that's when I saw it. Logan's watch. The one I bought him for our 5th anniversary. The one he never took off. It sat on Holly's nightstand like it belonged there. My hands went cold. My mind searched for excuses. Maybe he took it off earlier. Maybe she picked it up by mistake. But deep down, something cracked open. All the late laughs, the private jokes, the way they went quiet when I entered a room. It rushed back at once. I stood there alone, surrounded by my sister's things, holding a truth I wasn't ready for. The wedding dress waiting at home suddenly felt like a lie I was about to wear. After I left my parents' house, my mind refused to stay quiet. Every memory I had pushed aside came rushing back, one by one, like they had been waiting for permission. I replayed moments I once laughed at, moments that now felt heavy and wrong. Logan and Holly had their own jokes. I remembered how they would laugh and stop suddenly when I entered the room. At the time, I told myself I was being sensitive. Holly was younger, funnier, easier to be around. That's what I believed. There were the late-night phone calls, too. Logan always said they were about wedding plans or family issues. I never checked his phone. I trusted him. I trusted her. Now I wondered how many nights I fell asleep while they stayed awake talking. What hurt most was how Holly seemed to know things I never told her. She knew when Logan was stressed at work. She knew about our small arguments before I mentioned them. She even once comforted me about a fight I hadn't shared with anyone. I remember feeling grateful then. Now it made my stomach twist. I tried to blame myself. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I stopped noticing him. Maybe I wasn't enough. Denial felt easier than truth, even when the truth was already sitting in my chest. Betrayal didn't arrive like a loud explosion. It slipped in quietly, hiding inside normal moments and familiar faces. By the time I noticed it, it had already changed everything I thought I knew about my life. I told myself I needed proof, even though my heart already knew. 2 days later, I left work early with a headache and drove without thinking. Somehow, I ended up near Holly's apartment. I don't know why I parked across the street. I don't know why I stayed. Then I saw Logan's car. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I checked the time. It was a weekday afternoon. He was supposed to be in a meeting. I told myself there had to be a reason, some simple explanation that would make me feel foolish for being there. I waited. Minutes later, the door opened. Logan stepped out first, relaxed, smiling. Holly followed barefoot, wearing one of his shirts. She laughed and touched his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. Everything inside me went quiet. There was no dramatic moment. No shouting. No tears right away. Just a deep, sinking feeling in my body. My ears rang. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't pull in enough air. I tasted metal in my mouth and realized I was biting my lip too hard. They kissed before going back inside. That was it. No confusion. No questions left to ask. I sat there frozen, staring at a life I no longer recognized. My phone buzzed in my lap, but I couldn't move to check it. My fingers felt numb. My legs shook as I finally turned the key and drove away. I didn't confront them. I didn't cry. I just left, carrying a truth so heavy it made my whole body ache. Some proof doesn't need words. It burns itself into you and never lets go. I couldn't keep it inside any longer. That evening, I waited until Logan came home and closed the door behind him. My hands trembled, and my voice felt small at first. "Logan, we need to talk," I said. He looked at me, surprised, like he didn't know what was coming. I told him what I had seen, every detail I remembered. He didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned back on the couch and shrugged. "Paige, it didn't mean anything. It was just a mistake," he said. I was stressed. I had the chance, and I messed up. I felt my chest tighten. Just a mistake? You're marrying me, and you slept with my sister. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal. He avoided my gaze. Look, I'm sorry. I didn't want this to happen. But you have to understand, it's complicated. Later, I confronted Holly. She smiled, calm and collected, as if she had been waiting for this. Paige, you've always been busy, wrapped up in your job. Logan needed attention. I just helped him feel better, she said. Maybe you should have noticed the distance sooner. I stared at both of them, heart pounding. Neither felt true remorse. Logan didn't seem to grasp the weight of what he'd done. Holly framed it like I was the one at fault. Fear of consequences was the only emotion they carried. I realized then that no apology would fix this. No words could erase what had been done. Their excuses couldn't match the damage. I was left with the cold truth. I had been betrayed deeply by the two people I trusted most. I decided not to cancel the wedding, at least not yet. My mind was spinning, but I knew I needed time. Time to think, time to plan, and time to make sure my next move would be the right one. Pretending everything was normal felt impossible, but screaming, crying, or lashing out wouldn't help me either. Logan thought my silence meant forgiveness. He smiled at me like nothing had happened, held my hand, and joked about last-minute wedding details. Every time he looked at me, I felt a flash of anger, but I kept my face calm. I nodded, laughed when expected, and reminded myself that patience was my shield. Holly, on the other hand, grew bolder. She lingered too long in the kitchen while I prepared flowers, sat too close at family dinners, and smiled at Logan in a way that made my stomach turn. I watched them together, silent, while I quietly counted every little sign that proved what I already knew. Every day felt like walking on glass, but I learned something about myself in that silence. I didn't need to shout to have power. Planning carefully, watching, and waiting made me stronger than showing my anger right away. At night, I allowed myself small moments of rage, letting the feelings out in private. But in the light of day, I became someone they couldn't read. Pretending was harder than screaming, but it was also my weapon. I realized that patience could speak louder than any angry words. I started paying attention to the people around me, noticing little things I had ignored before. Everyone seemed normal, but I knew better. Betrayal didn't happen in isolation. It left traces, and some people could see them. I reached out to Derek Collins, Logan's best friend, under the pretense of asking about wedding plans. He fidgeted, avoided my eyes, and hesitated too long before answering. Finally, he admitted he had suspected something between Logan and Holly. He hadn't said anything because he didn't want to get involved. I realized then that silence can protect the guilty just as easily as it can protect the innocent. My mother was harder to read. She noticed tension between Holly and Logan, I could tell. But she brushed it off, telling herself it was normal sibling closeness or wedding stress. Her inaction showed me that betrayal often survives through complicity, through people choosing comfort over truth. Elaine Porter, my coworker, became my quiet support. She didn't ask questions, she didn't gossip. She just listened when I needed to talk and helped me think clearly when my emotions ran wild. Having someone who understood, even in silence, reminded me I wasn't completely alone. As I pieced it together, I realized that betrayal isn't just about the people who act. It's also about those who look away. Some see, some suspect, and some choose not to intervene. That understanding gave me clarity and, slowly, a sense of control. I was learning where the cracks were, and that knowledge became my quiet power. I knew the wedding would happen, but it wouldn't be the day they expected. I spent hours thinking about every detail, deciding how to turn a ceremony meant to celebrate a lie into a statement of truth. I wanted every choice to matter, every action to speak louder than anger. I rewrote my vows. They wouldn't be full of hurt or insults, but they would reveal what really mattered to me. Honesty, self-respect, and boundaries. I didn't want to yell. I wanted every word to land like a quiet truth no one could ignore. I adjusted the seating, putting people in positions that highlighted who really cared and who had stayed silent. I noticed how small changes could shift the whole atmosphere. The music was deliberate too, songs that felt empowering, steady, and calm, not melodramatic. I wanted the day to reflect me, not the betrayal I endured. Logan had no idea. He smiled, believing the day was his to enjoy, thinking my quiet behavior meant forgiveness. Holly seemed confident, expecting admiration. But every detail I chose slowly shifted control back to me. Planning it this way wasn't easy. It required restraint and patience. Every decision was measured, not fueled by rage, but by clarity. I realized I could reclaim the ritual, shape it on my terms, and speak my truth in a space where everyone expected me to be weak. By the time the wedding day arrived, I was ready. The ceremony would not celebrate their betrayal. It would expose it quietly, gracefully, and unmistakably. I had turned a day meant for lies into my statement. The morning of the wedding felt strange, quiet, almost too calm. Outside, the sun shone like any other day, but inside, I could feel the tension humming under the surface. Everything looked perfect. The flowers were arranged just right, the chairs aligned, the decorations sparkling. Everyone smiled, expecting a day full of love. Logan was relaxed, adjusting his tie in the mirror and joking with Derek. He thought I was unaware, that I would play the part of the happy bride. Holly sat close to the aisle, flawless as ever, her confidence radiating. She didn't know I had spent weeks planning every detail to turn the day into something she couldn't control. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, walking slowly, deliberately. My dress felt heavy, but my steps were steady. Every eye followed me, expecting the typical excitement and joy. They didn't see the storm brewing beneath my calm exterior. I noticed faces turning toward me. Family, friends, everyone waiting for the moment of celebration. I held my head high, feeling the weight of what I was about to reveal. The air felt thick with anticipation, though no one yet realized what was coming. Inside, my heart raced, but my outward appearance stayed composed. I smiled politely when necessary, nodded when greeted, and let the world think this was just another perfect wedding. Every step I took toward Logan was a quiet promise. The day that everyone assumed was about love was about to become a reckoning they would never forget. As I stood at the front, the music softened, and all eyes were on me. I felt a moment of calm settle over me, a strange clarity. This was my chance to speak, not with anger, but with truth. No yelling, no tears in front of the crowd, just honesty. When it was time for vows, I took a deep breath. I looked at Logan, then at Holly, who was sitting close by, confident as ever. My voice was steady. I cannot say the usual promises, I began, because promises are built on trust, and trust has been broken. Logan, you have betrayed me with my own sister, Holly. And Holly, you chose to take part in this betrayal knowingly. The room fell silent. I spoke each word carefully, naming what had been done without exaggeration, without theatrics. I explained briefly how I discovered the truth, how it had affected me, and how I could no longer pretend that everything was okay. I didn't attack them. I didn't scream. I let the facts stand for themselves. People shifted in their seats, murmuring quietly. Logan's face drained of color. Holly's confident smile faltered. The truth hit harder than any accusation could have, because it was calm, clear, and undeniable. I ended quietly, looking around at everyone. I deserve honesty, respect, and love. I cannot accept anything less. My voice carried through the room, steady and final. For the first time, I felt the power of my own words, and the weight of betrayal was finally visible to all. I turned away from Logan and Holly and walked out of the hall without looking back. My dress swished softly around my legs, and every step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I didn't wait for apologies. I didn't want explanations. I didn't need closure from people who had already shown their true selves. Outside, the air was fresh and sharp, almost like it was welcoming me into a new life. I felt the weight of months of betrayal slowly lift, replaced by a strange sense of calm. I wasn't running from pain. I was stepping toward freedom. Inside, I knew the fallout had begun. Friends whispered, parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats, and I imagined Logan's face pale with humiliation. Holly's composure must have cracked by now, realizing that confidence alone couldn't protect her. I had made my statement, and the truth had done its work. I drove away without a destination in mind, letting the city lights guide me. My phone buzzed with missed calls and texts, but I ignored them. My world no longer included people who had chosen betrayal over loyalty. For the first time in months, I felt in control. I would heal on my own terms, set boundaries that could never be crossed again, and define my life by respect and honesty rather than lies. I didn't need to wait for their apologies, their shame, or their recognition. That night, I understood something important. Leaving wasn't weakness. It was strength. Walking away was my power, and for the first time, the future felt entirely mine. Psychologists say that recognizing betrayal early helps protect your emotional well-being and rebuild trust wisely. If you face deceit from loved ones, remember, setting boundaries and choosing self-respect is not selfish. It's necessary. Take control of your life, prioritize honesty, and never settle for less than you deserve.